When I was a news reporter back in the day covering rape trials, I was quite often stunned, actually, at the way that the defence lawyers would attack the credibility way over the line, actually, of the victim. And I really thought that those days had gone, but it seems not. Ellie Wilson was left feeling deeply traumatised by her rapist defence lawyer in court, and she says she now feels vindicated because she complained about it and just said it was unacceptable, that the way he treated her while he was questioning her was just indefensible. And that complaint was upheld, and he's been fined over his conduct.
Well, Ellie, who's waived her anonymity, lodged a complaint against Lorenzo Alonzi following the trial in Glasgow in 2022, which saw her attacker jailed for 5 years. She joins us now alongside barrister Kirsty Brimlow. Casey, thank you both very much for coming in.
Nice to see you both.
To talk about this. And Ellie, I wanted to say to you, to applaud you for your courage in doing this, actually, because, I can imagine it's difficult enough going through this kind of court case, isn't it? And then coming to the end of it and feeling that you still wanted to fight for justice over what had happened in that court case must have been a hard decision to make.
It was really difficult. I came out of the court case completely traumatised. I felt like a broken person. Even just physically, I was absolutely exhausted. But I knew that what had happened to me in court wasn't right, and I needed justice for what had happened, because my justice journey didn't end at my rapist being found guilty. I knew I had to pursue justice against this defence lawyer as well.
Give us some examples of the kinds of things that this guy was saying to you when you were in the witness box.
So when he was cross-examining me, he accused me of having narcissistic personality disorder, even though I have no medical diagnosis of that.
You mean he just plucked it out of the air?
He plucked it out of the air, and in fact, when the judge challenged him on it, he said that it was his own assessment.
What?
Even though, obviously, lawyers are not qualified to make medical assessments.
So it's the same as almost him saying you're schizophrenic?
Exactly.
Because I think you are.
Exactly. He was just making things up, and he kept asking me about random men, acquaintances, and asking if I'd used these men to make my abuser jealous. But I think the worst part for me was actually at sentencing. So after my abuser had already been found guilty by the jury, I was told that it was an injustice that I had graduated with a first-class degree and a Master's with distinction while my abuser was going to prison. And
didn't he say as well that, that your rapist had been unlucky enough to fall in love with you?
Yep, he said that he had fallen in love with the wrong person.
This is after he'd been found guilty?
After he'd been found guilty.
It almost sounds personal.
It felt personal. It really did. During the cross-examination, it did get heated at points, and I felt like he was really annoyed about the fact that that he wasn't able to break me. And I think he wanted to sort of put me in my place. I
think you're amazing that not only did you go through that experience and as you say, not come out in one piece, because you didn't, you're in bits, but then you decided, the heck with this, I'm actually going after this guy. To establish a principle here that you cannot treat people like you in that way.
Exactly. I think that women who come forward about rape and abuse, it takes so much strength and it takes so much bravery to even come forward. And to then go into court and be dehumanised, publicly humiliated like that, it's unacceptable. And if we want women to be able to come forward, then they need to be able to do so knowing that they won't be subject to that sort of treatment.
And it was tricky for you. I mean, for you to be able to do this, you had to waive your legal right to anonymity. You had to get the transcriptions from the court case, which then costs thousands of pounds, doesn't it? That you had to get the funding to be able to do that. Hopefully that system is now changing for people. But it wasn't an easy process to even go about getting this, was it?
No, it wasn't easy at all. So, first of all, I had to compile all of the complaint myself. As you said, I needed my court transcripts to corroborate what I was saying. It was then that I found out that I would need thousands of pounds in order to get my court transcripts.
So you crowdfunded?
So I crowdfunded, managed to raise the funds for that.
Must have been very stressful, actually, reading in black and white.
Oh, it was so stressful. It was really re-traumatising. But I also, I had to study the law. I had to look at the relevant sections of the law to know what I was going to complain about. And I faced off against a team of lawyers. And ultimately, I was successful. But, I think the court transcripts thing as well, that's such a huge issue. having to crowdfund for that. And it was off the back of that I decided to start a public campaign for free court transcripts in Scotland.
Well, I must say, if you were my daughter, I'd be really proud of you. I'd be so proud of you.
Thank you.
Kirsty, look, we know, obviously, that every accused person has a right to a vigorous defence. And people giving evidence, whatever their story, whatever's happened to them, have to expect to be vigorously cross-examined. That's fine. So it would have been fine for this particular defence lawyer to pick away at her evidence and question it, but to actually go on the attack, basically, and to try and, I suppose, in front of the jury, to plant doubts about her morality and her behaviour in the minds of the jury, just by smearing her, it's completely unacceptable.
Yeah, well, obviously the complaint's been upheld, and barristers and advocates, obviously this was in Scotland, we're governed by a code of conduct, and an important part of that code of conduct is that an advocate should not abuse their position. And that does mean that barristers should not be insulting. I mean, you speak about humiliation. They absolutely should not be doing that in cross-examination. And I would like to say that I think this is happily a very rare case. I mean, not happily for you who's had to go through it.
I was going to ask this, because as I say, I remember it as being almost de rigueur when 30 years ago when I was a news reporter.
That might have been 30 years ago.
Oh, right. OK.
I was going to ask how long ago.
A long time ago.
I think it obviously used to be much, much worse.
Yeah.
And I think the bar has worked really, really hard with training and also with the code of conduct. And also a judge's duty is to intervene.
Well, I was just going to ask, why didn't that happen?
Why someone didn't step in?
I think the judge did intervene. I mean, you were obviously in the trial, but the judge did intervene to actually pull the advocate up. The other point is that
but he kept doing
barristers,
it.
He kept doing it, and hence the complaint came. But barristers also cannot just randomly ask somebody about their previous sexual history or hint about them being somebody with.
So what was he trying? As I said earlier, what was he basically trying to? And obviously he didn't really mind the judge intervening because the damage was done. He was trying to poison the minds of the jury. He was trying to get the jury to think that she wasn't.
Yeah, it's difficult to know what the motivation would be because. I mean, frankly, cross-examination does not have to be cross. And somebody should not feel humiliated after being questioned in court and the way that Ellie has been feeling. That should not be happening. It is a case where obviously a defendant who's pleading not guilty is saying, look, I did not do this. And so they do have a right to a fair trial. It's an adversarial system. So there is going to be some element of somebody feeling upset, perhaps, after being cross-examined. But going over the line, as was found in this case, is something different.
Because the trouble is, you know, we have enough difficulty, don't we, with getting prosecutions in rape cases for them even to get to the situation of getting to court, don't we, let alone. So the worry is that it will put people off.
I'd hope it wouldn't.
From going through this process.
I'd hope it wouldn't, because it is, certainly my experience, having practiced in the courts for over 30 years, both prosecuting and defending in sexual offences cases, this is something which is very rare. It shouldn't have happened. I'm going to say this is in Scotland. It's also got a system where it's looking at, perhaps looking at its training, and it's also looking at how accessible complaints are.
Well, this guy, he took on the wrong person here, because not only did you go after him and win, he's been fined £2,000, hasn't he? But actually, he could be fined up to £3,000, and you've decided to go back and say, excuse me, why hasn't he been fined the maximum?
Yes, I have. I've decided to appeal that. He'd been ordered to pay me £1,000 compensation and that £2,000 fine, but the maximum available is £3,000 compensation and a £3,000 fine. So I'm pushing for more because I think that penalty is unduly lenient, and I think there needs to be consequences for that sort of behaviour.
And more broadly, what else would you like to see change in cases like yours?
So, obviously, you know, we have laws in place that regulate what can and can't be said in these sorts of cases, but I don't think they're enforced enough. I think that more training is necessary, improving the complaints process as well, access to free court transcripts. Obviously, we have a pilot programme for that in Scotland, but in England and Wales, you know, survivors still have to pay thousands of pounds for their court transcripts. I think just making sure that the justice system is more open, less secretive, and supports victims.
I think you're great. Thanks very much. much for
well
coming
done.
in. Obviously,
Thank you
we
very
approached the lawyer, Lorenzo Alonzi, for a comment, but we haven't received any response.
No, we haven't. Thanks so much to both of you for coming in.
Thank you both.
Ellie, for
Thank you.
talking about that. We appreciate it. And just to say, if you have been affected by any of the issues we've been discussing, then you can find advice and support at itv.com/helplines.